COPWATCH, policing the police every single day. And doing what the Charlotte County Sun newspaper and local TV stations won't do every single day.
An executioner. And more importantly, how do we change it? Can we really reform American policing? Well, my next guest thinks he may have the answer, and it might seem odd. His name is James McClinnis, and he is running for sheriff in Pinellas, Florida. But what's notable about him is what he isn't. He's not a cop, nor does he have any law enforcement experience. Instead, he's been working in the field of consumer protection. But it's his theory that his lack of ties to policing is exactly what makes him the perfect candidate. And so he joins us today to explain why. James, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So first, tell us about your campaign. What made you decide to run for sheriff, given your background?
For a number of different reasons. I've been investigating the corruption at the sheriff's department now for over 10 years, and it's really way worse than anyone could possibly imagine. The second reason is I actually feel like I can go in there and fix it and change it and make things better for the county of Pinellas. And the third reason is I have a daughter who's 17 years old, and I don't want her growing up in a community where the police are as corrupt as they are here in Pinellas County. I want to change it not only for her, but for everybody else that are having these problems all across the country that people are currently protesting against. I sincerely believe that I can put these reforms in place, and that's not going to happen from somebody who's a lifelong career police officer.
So what would be your philosophy? How would you change law enforcement in Florida if you were elected?
First off, we obviously have to have use of force reforms. And there are a number of fantastic use of force performance reforms out there online already. Campaign Zero has one, which I adopted, and they're actually an offshoot of Black Lives Matter. And they've gone out and they've researched all of the reforms that are currently working around the world, even in other police agencies here in America. And they've put it all into one concise form. And I've adopted that form. And not only have I adopted that form, I've actually added to it. Like as an example, I've taken off attack dogs. I don't think that police agencies should have attack dogs like the 60s race riots we saw. And instead of attack dogs and drug dogs, I'm going to be bringing in bloodhounds. And so that way, if the subject is cornered and captured, all they'll do is get licked to death instead of chewed to death.
So we keep witnessing horrifying misuse of police force across the country. Why do you think this keeps happening?
It keeps happening because of something that I call chain of command inbreeding. And that's something I hope to address. And that's a phrase that I've made up, so don't look it up, you're not going to find it. But chain of command inbreeding is something really simple. We as a community, we keep thinking that we're electing sheriffs all across the country, over 3,000 of them every year. And we haven't actually elected a single one of them. Every single sheriff that is in operation and we're running a sheriff's agency right now is somebody that was hand-selected, hand-groomed, and hand-picked by the police industry and put in front of the voters and saying, this is your only choice. And because of that, they've never done anything. They've never had to do anything. They don't have to worry about a political opponent coming along and making any real changes because they've blocked the entire process so that people like me typically can't run.
So what problems have you seen with law enforcement in your area? I notice you've talked about spending as an issue. What are your concerns about policing in your community? What do you want to change?
I think that police spending is actually a scam upon the taxpayers. They keep trying to scare us and tell us that we keep needing more officers, more officers, more officers. And I can't drive down a 1 mile stretch of street here without passing 3 or 4 or 5 of them sitting in banks and behind churches. And I've actually caught them on video cameras sleeping. We have too many of them. And just to give you an example of how bad it is, here in Pinellas County, Sheriff Gualtieri has only been in office for 9 years. But in that 9 years, his combined budget has been $2.3 billion that he has sucked out of the taxpayers' pockets, and he is actually nothing more than a cancer that's bleeding this county dry. And that $2.3 billion does not even include the $500 million that they spent on what they call capital improvements, a $100 million jail, an $85 million new police headquarters. They have a $75,000 statues, 2 of them, out front, $75,000 each, cast in bronze of 2 Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies, one handing a bronze flag to the other. Why do we need $150,000 worth of bronze statues out in front of the police department? Why do each one of these officers get to drive a car home? Why do school resource officers get a $70,000 police patrol car that they drive back and forth to the school that's actually just sitting in the parking lot? Do we give the teachers cars every day? Because I'd rather give them a car every day than give these police officers a car. So there is literally massive amounts of waste. Another great example is he has 3 helicopters here. Each one of them has a $45,000 custom paint job on them that only the grounds crew will ever see. So if you give a police agency money, then they will keep spending and spending and spending. And I personally am going to go in there and I'm going to cut at least 25% across the board, starting with my own paycheck.
One of the biggest issues that has defined American policing is accountability. Theoretically, could a sheriff investigate or hold a police department accountable for a crime they commit? Basically, where does a sheriff fit into the structure of law enforcement in your jurisdiction?
Well, a lot of people don't understand the difference between a sheriff or a deputy and a police officer or a cop, and there's a huge difference. In the police agency, typically those police chiefs are not really the people that are in charge of that police district or agency. The mayor is in charge, the city council is in charge, and if the mayor doesn't like it, he will be fired. Here in Pinellas County, the St. Pete Police Mayor, Rick Kreisman, was just on a newscast wearing a black polo shirt with the St. Pete Police badge on it, and on the right-hand side it said mayor. He is literally the head of the police. So all these protesters are going down there and they're picketing Anthony Holloway and they're picketing the St. Pete Police Department. Those officers don't give a damn about any of this. They just want their paycheck and they want their pension, and that's what they're there for. Chief Holloway can't do anything on his own unless Mayor Kreisman and the city council tell him to. And if he does not do what he wants them to do, they will fire him and put somebody else in there. So he's just a figurehead. He's just a puppet of the local administration. Whereas a sheriff is actually an elected administrative position, much like a mayor. And what they keep trying to do is they keep trying to tell the public that you only have the right to vote for who they pick, when we have the right to vote anybody into this office. And I was out at a protest last Saturday and somebody said, well, how can you possibly run the police agency if you've never been a law enforcement officer? And I pointed across the street to the St. Pete City Hall and I said, Rick Kreisman right now is the mayor of this city and he's in charge of the police. Did he have to go to Mayor Academy? Did you make him be a mayor for 20 years before you elected him? No, you elect your officials based on their ideas, their concepts, and what they're telling you they will do. And what the police industry is telling you they're going to do is to continue to beat you, rob you, take your money, abuse your rights, and allow racist policies to continue to go on just like they have for 100 years. And the only way to change that is to bring in somebody new. And I like to say that I am the new face of police reform, a non-LEO. The new face of police reform is non-LEOs running for sheriff all across the country, starting with me.
So how would you handle the power of police unions? I have seen them bring mayors to their knees. How would you handle it?
The mayors that were on their knees did so voluntarily. The problem that we're having here is that the police industry is the flea that's wagging the dog. The city, the people. Less than 5%, 0.5% of the population here in Pinellas are police officers, but yet they're telling the rest of the population what to do, including the unions. I've looked at the union contracts here, and they have things in there that are absolutely asinine. Like as an example, if you fire a police officer, he can arbitrate. But Sheriff Gualtieri actually signed a union contract that says that the union gets to pick the arbitrator. That's insane. So the bottom line here is you have these police captains and sergeants and sheriffs that claim that they're under the 8 ball with these unions when actually they're just part of the same system and they're agreeing to this stuff because they want to be covered under it too. Yes, as sheriff, I will not negotiate with these unions. These things will be stripped out of there. What are they going to do? Quit? If they quit, go ahead. Because my position is I'm going to end cannabis enforcement. I'm going to need to get rid of 1/3 of the dirty officers anyway. And if those are the ones that don't like it, fine, there's the front door.
And finally, how have people responded to your candidacy? Do you think people are receptive to your ideas? And is it something that could be replicated across the country?
If you're in the police industry, you hate my ideas because I'm bringing accountability. However, if you're outside the police industry and you've been paying attention to anything that's going on, people are very receptive to my ideas. Just to give you an example, I just put my McGlinnis4Sheriff.com website up not even a month ago. And already our website has been shared in over 37 countries, in 47 states, and over 3,000 cities. And 80% of my donations are coming from outside Florida. And I've actually had to return numerous donations from foreign countries. So the message that I'm talking about is something that resonates. What I am offering is literally every single thing that the protesters are asking for, and it can be implemented literally with 1 vote for sheriff by just in voting for me, and those reforms are here. No more begging the police industry, no more begging the mayor, no more having them ignore you and put in little token reforms or changes that they're going to just go back away from. The only way for us to take control of this problem is to elect non-LEOs into the position of sheriff, where we will come in and we won't give a damn about how it's been done for 100 years. We're going to start doing it right.
It's clear, despite the protests, calls for reform on both the national and local level, there are forces that drive policing which insulate it from the normal processes of a functioning democracy. The death of Rayshard Brooks is case in point.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch. I am using any video here with under fair use. If you have criticism, reporting, teaching, etc., and please donate. I do not make money from YouTube, and there are different ways to donate in the video links. Thanks.